Welcome back everyone. I decided to change up the format just a bit, so in this video we'll take a look at everything you'll need to go from 0 to 250 KC to cover those general KC requirements for the combat achievements. If you're looking for a magic only guide or a video on the rest of the combat achievements, then look down below in the description. I'll be making one on both of them and getting them linked as soon as I can. As always, if you like the vid, please subscribe, drop a like, and let me know what you think. So first up, you'll need to complete the Regicide quest to access this boss. After that, you've got two primary ways to get here. The first is via the fairy ring code BJS with 76 agility or 71 with the Summer's Pot. Secondly, you can get here using Zulrah teleports, which you can buy off the GE. It's quicker than the fairy ring, but they're a bit expensive. However, if you can manage at least 2 kills per trip, it's generally worth the GP. Just note you will need to complete the quest before you can use them. But if for whatever reason neither of those work for you, you could get here via the charter ship to Port Tyrus.
Alright, so once you get here, you're going to have to go ahead and talk to the High Priestess who's standing here. Offer yourself as a sacrifice in place of the Gnome Child, and then from there you can go on and access the boss without a problem.
So for the actual requirements to kill the boss, it's generally recommended to have at least 75 magic and range so you can use the Trident of the Swamp and the Toxic Blowpipe respectively, as this is a hybrid fight. But I personally recommend having 76 magic so you can use Greater Thralls, as this will help speed up otherwise slow kills. As mentioned, Zulrah is a hybrid fight requiring both ranged and magic. If you're experienced with Zulrah, you can take up to an 8-way swap, but if this is your first time, you're definitely going to want something a little less complicated. For beginners, I would generally recommend using Elite Void and keeping your switches to 3 or 4 items until you're more comfortable, especially if you're not used to gear swaps. Now, if you don't have Elite Void, you can either use a regular Void or do a magic only kill for your first KC to get the Western Province done. Basically, here's what an average Void setup looks like. Our weapon, of course, is going to be the Toxic Blowpipe and the Trident of the Swamp. We want the Mage Cape 2, your highest Ava's device, a blessing in the ammo slot, any magic offhand if you want it, and then either bring 2 rings of recoil or a charged ring of suffering, preferably an imbued one. For the boots, I opted for a more tanky option with granite boots as they offer no negative stats. For the necklace, we've got the Fury or the Anguish for range, and then the Occult necklace for magic. This puts you at a 3 range and 4-way magic swap, or a 3-3 swap if you forego the magic offhand. And that's honestly as simple as it gets. For alternatives to Void, you're looking at using Ahrim's and Blessed D'hide, and the gloves have been changed to Barrows. Once you have the bank for it, upgrade to a Tormented bracelet, and you'll want to add that in as an extra swap. Of course, you could also bring the Zerite Vambraces over Barrows, but this is a beginner guide. Who has that kind of GP? Anyways, including all of these gear changes, we're looking at now a 6-way range swap and a 7-way mage swap. From here on out, I don't bother adding in any swap, so instead I'll just list some viable options and you can choose which one you'd like to camp. For boots, I camp Pegasians or D'hide boots, but the Eternal Magic boots are also viable. For your helm, you can camp the Helm of Nazenaut, the Face Guard, or the Ancestral Mage Hat. Some people also use the Serpentine Helm, as when charged will prevent you from getting Venom. But this adds another upkeep cost on top of the Blowpipe, so I personally opt for camping the Face Guard. As for the Mage offhand, here's what your options look like with each of their respective stats from lowest to highest. I'd say pick whatever your bank allows for, and I personally usually end up with the Mage's Book. Now, if you have the bank for it, you can also try some range-only methods with either the Twisted Bow or the Bow of Farad'dinen with Crystal Armor. Of course, using these weapons with magic is better, but they do provide a nice and relaxed way to kill the boss. In fact, the Twisted Bow is how I got the majority of my KC here, and pretty much how I learned the rotation. So if you have it, it's a nice way to at least learn the 2 rotations without worrying about all the gear swaps. Just be warned, once you add in magic again for either speedrunning or normal kills, it will feel a bit like relearning the boss if you don't already have that muscle memory built up. Before moving on from gear, I wanted to take a look at some differences between Void and other setups in terms of DPS and the calculations I found. For magic, all setups were ran against the Turpentine phase, and for range, all setups were ran against Tanzanite. I used 76 magic and 75 range as the base stats. In general, standard Void is never worth it. So with these numbers on screen, we can see the differences between Void and Ahrim's, and then Blessed D'hide. I went with budget setup, so that includes things like an Occult, Fury, Barrows gloves, Helm of Nazenaut, and then D'hide boots, since I don't bother with swaps in either of those cases. And I'm also assuming you have at least an imbued God cape, which will be important for later calculations. And lastly, I didn't include any magic offhands or prayers for these calculations. But you can see that Void is slightly better and D'hide is superior, assuming you're using Amethyst darts. And here I just have Ava's Accumulator. Taking these sets in, if we add in either the Ancestral Hat or the Tormented Bracelet for magic, then we actually get some interesting DPS increases that make Aram superior. So the first upgrade to gear, in my opinion, should either be the Ancestral Hat or Tormented Bracelet, but the Ancestral Hat is probably a bit cheaper. So all in all, as you can see, it's pretty much just better not to use Void here. That said, if you're spending more time worried about gear than actually attacking the boss, you'll be losing more DPS than it's worth. So in the beginning, don't be afraid to use Void while you're learning the rotations. Just try and work in normal setups once you get more comfortable with the boss. Now with gear out of the way, we're on to inventory. Potion-wise, Anti-Venom ++ are a must-have. Also bring a Bastion pot, preferably Divine. They also raise defense. Now I will say early on, a lot of players tend to forgo these because regular range pots are just that much cheaper. But you're fighting a boss to make money, so like, it's okay, you can invest a bit. Trust me, it's worth it. After that, 3 prayer pots, which you might need to adjust depending on your needs. And I personally take 4 Karambwans, as you can take a large amount of damage pretty quickly with these boss between the snakelings and, the boss attacks itself. And the Angler is to pre-eat before the fight so I can have space to swap out of my magic gear since I bring a magic offhand. Now, with that, my rune pouch has bloods, cosmics, and fires for greater thralls. And after that, just make sure you bring your teleports, a Drayman staff if you need it, fill up on sharks or better, and don't forget a backup ring of recoil if you don't have the Ring of Suffering. Here's the map where you fight Zulrah. As you can see, I have the tiles already marked. Keep in mind there's a chat box that appears when you travel on the boat, and the boss doesn't appear until you click off that. You can actually use this to give yourself time to map up most of the locations before you start. But basically, Zulrah pops up and down randomly at these locations, and each time in a different color. Zulrah has 3 phases, or 3 different colors, and 4 rotations, or 4 set patterns of attack. Once you've done the boss enough, you'll instinctively have these memorized, but for now, the phases are as follows: Serpentine, Magma, and Tanzanite. On the Serp phase, you pray range and attack with magic. If you do this right, you can avoid all damage. On the Magma phase, Zulrah does 2 unblockable melee attacks that you can dodge. So you can turn off prayer here, and you attack with magic. The Tanzanite phase, Zulrah attacks with both ranged and magic, but you pray magic and attack with range. So for other mechanics, throughout the fight, Zulrah can throw out acid clouds and snakelings. These acid clouds are easy to avoid if you pay attention and step where you need to in advance. If you're in them, they'll constantly damage you and they'll apply venom. Now, Zulrah also throw out these snakelings. They have 1 HP, but a max hit of 15. The best way, however, to deal with them is through the Ring of Recoil, which is why we have it. And pretty much any and all of Zulrah's attacks, except for the magic, can and will venom you. Even if you're praying properly, the Serpentine phase can still venom you. As mentioned, there are 4 rotations: Serpentine, Tanzanite, and then Magma A and Magma B. Zulrah always starts the same with Serpentine phase, so you'll know which rotation you're on by phase 2, except for the Magma rotations as they split at phase 4. In any case, there are 2 options for learning this boss. You can take it 1 phase at a time. You can take it 1 rotation at a time, which many people do recommend. For this strategy, Zulrah always starts on Serpentine, so after the first dip, if you don't see the color you want, then relog and try again. This will keep it simple and cut down on variation, or you can do what I did and just learn them in any order as they come. For either strategy, you might find it helpful to use the Zulrah plugin available through RuneLite's plugin hub. This will provide a clickable side panel to help show where you need to be and what phase is coming up next. I will say, in the beginning, I had trouble managing everything and this plugin, but after a while I got the hang of it, so just test it out and see what works for you. Now that brings me to my next point. Anyone who has fought Zulrah knows the learning curve is pretty steep, so here are some tips that will hopefully make things easier for you. Number 1, always swap your prayers first. Number 2, movement comes next. Once you swap your prayers, click on the tile you're supposed to, and then now, number 3, you can start changing your gear. And then number 4 at this point is everything else. You can start attacking, worrying about eating, checking prayer again, all of those things. And that's it. I mean, if you're new to gear swapping and not used to managing all of these things at once, then definitely try practicing a bit outside of Zulrah just to get a bit used to it. And you can click around and see what you prefer, whether that's clicking your gear vertically or horizontally. Now we're ready to jump in and look at some kills. The first one we played in full time, and the other 3 will be slightly sped up, but in each case we'll go over everything we need along with some other points that didn't quite make it into another section of this video. Alright, so let's jump into things. We're going to start with Magma A. So as you can see here, I'm just pre-potting up. I am on the Arceus spellbook, but I'm just not going to use it because I'm already going to have a quick kill, as you'll see here, just because I'm max level. But if you time this right, you'll get 5 attacks in on this phase. So starting up, Zulrah doesn't do anything except for spray these acid clouds. So although I'm praying range, you don't need to. I just, happen to have my preset set that way. Now, because I'm going for a magma phase, up next is always going to be this red phase. So when he looks at you, just take a step on your next tile. He's going to look at you again, take a step on your next tile. And from there, then you're going to want to start changing your gear, because then you have this blue phase here. Depending on how quick you are is going to determine how fast you do. Now, you can wait, get your attacks in, and then run, or you can do this little stepping method that I'm doing. But in either case, always make sure you change your prayer first to range, then worry about gear. So first prayer, movement, gear finally, and however you want to manage that is up to you. So from here, I know that we're going to have a magma phase up next. Now, I didn't actually touch the Zulrah plugin yet, because when I was learning, I found it helpful to do it on this stage once I was a bit more comfortable and relaxed, because with 2 out of the 4 phases, you always end up here, and with 3 out of the 4, you actually end up exactly here, because there's a serpentine in another place. But basically, if your pillar standing here, like you saw, he's never going to hit you. So after that, that's why I had Pray Magic on, and then you just do your thing. Now, I'm actually going to stop damaging just because I want to show the rest of the rotation. But on your left side, we've got those 2 snakelings. So you have to make sure that you either click somewhere where they're not, or you right-click and walk here so you don't accidentally attack them. Now, this phase is only Ashes and Snakelings, so I've gone ahead and prayed magic early in anticipation for the Tanzanite phase coming up, as you can see. Now, this one is a bit weird. So even though I'm attacking the Snakelings, what you'd actually have to do is turn your blowpipe to long range and then start shooting. And then once the acid clouds disappear, either when the acid clouds disappear or when you start seeing Zulrah pop out the snakelings, you're going to want to swap your prayer to range and start your gear swaps to get over in this location, preferably before those acid clouds get out. But the nice thing about the magma phase is Zulrah on Jad phase always starts with range, then magic, then range, then magic, and so on. But that is basically the kill. As you saw, I stuffed a little. I didn't bother with the prayer swaps, but we'll see a little bit more of that as we go. All right, now we're going to jump into Magma B. So here you're going to see that I actually have the tile markers turned on. And now I have it pre-set up because this was actually the last one I recorded. So I knew what I was expecting. And then obviously I'm just waiting here at this point because I learned that the rotations were just ending too soon. And I have my button here on log out because you'll just go in front of the Zulrah shrine outside if you log out, and I had to reset several times, and that's just quicker than teleporting out. But as usual, you get your 2 pokes, turn on Pray Magic if you don't already have it on, and then gear swap over. Like last time, you're going to see me doing the little steppy step thing, just getting a few steps closer without really wasting any attacks. And after that, we're going to be praying range, getting our magic stuff on, and now we have the Serpentine, but in a different position. So of all of the rotations, I do find this one to be the absolute shortest. But as you can see, Zulrah has actually not attacked us. So you're good there. So next up, we're going to have this phase. Now, this one is a little weird. In the beginning, you see that there's no poison cloud right in front of us, so we could stand there and actually do this attack on rapid. However, I put it on long range because, as you'll see in a second, Zulrah will start spitting out acid clouds. So if your blowpipe's not on long range, you're going to get in those acid clouds. You could also go in that middle square and then run back through the clouds, taking a bit of damage once this phase pops up in order to avoid the melee guy. And I looked around, I did some testing, but I'm not quite sure what the standard method or recommended is. So I would play around with it and see what you feel comfortable with. More than likely, you will get more DPS by running to the center square during that Tanzanite phase, then swapping it to long range. So you're probably better off taking a little bit of damage, but if you don't want to take any more additional damage than you have to, you're going to have to put the blowpipe on long range. Now for here, on the second time, Zulrah's not going to do any more acid clouds right on you. As you can see, that one didn't hit me. So even though I backed away, you're actually fine. You're good to go. You don't have to worry about clouds. Now, next up, we then have this phase, which is why I backed off early in preparation. So we have range first, as always, because Magma phase, and then we're just going to rotate. Now, as a general rule of thumb when it comes to Jad phase, when you see the mage, swap your prayer. See range, swap your prayer. This is because the damage is actually calculated when Zulrah bops down, not before the attack is actually seen. And then these acid clouds mark the end of the phase. So if you time it right, you can actually run early, but I didn't. And then we have this last red phase, and then the phase will start over. From there, if the phase has to if Zulrah completely resets, the phases in order will get out of whack and different things will start happening. But generally, it'll always come back green. But however, this time it will attack you. So if you make it past this, just make sure you have range, and then you're just gonna have to respond to whatever comes up next, basically. But that is our second Magma kill, and that is the rotation that I believe to be the absolute shortest. All right, so now we're on the Serpentine phase, which is marked by the middle one on the Zulrah plugin, since the second one that pops up will be the green phase. So as usual, so one thing I will say, if you right click on Zulrah when you come in, as soon as you see that camera angle change, you can click attack and you'll be able to get 5 attacks in. Otherwise, you will get 4 in. As far as what you pray, so this is the only phase of the 4 where Zulrah immediately sends out an attack that is blockable by prayer. So by default, you could set your prayers to range. That way you have a bit less to worry about with reaction time. If you set it to magic, then 3 out of 4 phases, you don't have to change it as quickly. So it just depends, do you want to save some prayer, not have any set? Do you want to, just whatever. Now, as you can see, he's doing all his pokey pokes, so we got to use our Q as usual. And then we're swapping back over here. This is, generally it's these phases where you're going to be healing up with the blowpipe spec and using it. And then I usually run over here slowly up my way, since we're going to have to cross the bridge, or basically whatever it is after that Tanzanite phase. So from here it's magic, and then it's back to the Tanzanite phase. I enjoy this phase. It's really good if you're doing the magic only method. However, if you're doing both, you're gonna have to be a little quicker with those gear swaps due to the few Tanzanites that do show up, however. And then from here, it's kind of just chill. We're gonna be running back across. So of all of the phases, you do run back and forth a bit here. So here's our next one. And then we're gonna go run back over for the last Tanzanite phase, and then again for the Jad phase. Now for this one, it is pretty much, pretty standard. There's not a lot going on. And then we're gonna get to the Jad phase. Now, because it's not a magma phase, we need to be praying magic first, and then we're gonna be swapping between magic and range. So as you can see, first one's coming out, that's magic. And then you see magic, so you pray range. As soon as you see the magic, you pray range. You see one, and you swap. So you're basically just praying the opposite, and that will get the timing out for you, and you'll be pretty good. But that is the phase, and now we're ready to take on our last one. All right, now we have the last one, the Tanzanite phase, marked by the blue for our second phase. So like last time, we're going to do this at 120. So as you can see, I held right click. As soon as the camera changed, I hit attack, and then we can get a full 5 attacks in if you're trying to be, tick perfect. In the beginning, not that important, but it'll come useful later on when you get into speed runs and stuff like that. So Tanzanite pops up on the right. Don't mind me misclicking, but he's just going to spew out acid clouds and snakelings, and you're just going to blowpipe him down. And then once those clouds disappears, you are free to basically start moving. And then there you go. So now we gear swap. Generally, you did see me doing gear first, but I do that to practice gear swap speed but generally do your prayer first and then gear swap second. So then we have back over to that. So as you saw, prayer came first. And then when you have a second, look over at your maps. Then we got red, followed by green coming up next. But we're going to be running to the other side of the map, as you can see. And luckily, we can just use this pillar method like we did from Magma in the first one where he pokes, and we're completely safe. All good there. So he's going to do his little acid cloud thing, and then we're going to have to get ready to put magic gear back on, as you can see. And voila, there we go. Now for this one, he's using ranged attacks. On the next one, you can actually go ahead and pray magic because this one only spits snakelings and acid pulls, doesn't do anything else. So, as you can see, acid cloud cleared up. We run over slowly, and then now we're here, we're pretty chill. This would be, well, we don't have to worry about prayers since we're already doing that, so then you use gear swap. And as you can see, I took a big hit, so that was a shark Bromblon. Pretty good after that. Got little snakelings hitting us. Oh, and why have I got a recoil on? No, yeah, okay, I've got a recoil. It just looked like he double hit me there for a second. And then we're coming up on just 2 more phases, so I'll just be basically holding out, waiting for it to pass so we can show Jad the time. But that's basically the phase. Oh, I should mention, because it's... So this one will be starting with magic first, because it's not magma. So if you get a magma phase, it'll start with rain. It's not magma, starts with magic. So Tanzanite and Serpentine, magic first on Jad phase. And that is our kills, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you've seen any of my other videos, then you know I usually make one master video, but I decided to break it up this time with just a normal guide and then do a separate video for the other combat achievements not related to kill requirements. So feel free to click on those once the links are up.